Hey y'all, Raza here with the Finding Yourself Book Club. Today we're going to continue discussing John Gottman's What Makes Love Last. We've covered 2 of the 4 steps of attunement. This chapter is called Attunement Made Easy, the Art of Intimate Conversation. So today we'll continue on section 3 of this chapter. Please do check out our website. We're at www.findingyourselfsatx.com. There you can take our life balance questionnaire and send it to us in an email. If you'd like, you can just reach out to us and start a conversation. Your first consult is always free. Okay, without further ado, John Gottman's What Makes Love Last? Attunement Made Easy, the Art of Intimate Conversation. Section 3. Follow up with statements that deepen connection. After your partner answers a question, respond by saying back what you just heard in your own words. It's okay if your description isn't 100% accurate, but don't make assumptions or put words into the other's mouth. When you reflect back your partner's thoughts and feelings in an understanding manner, you encourage him or her to open up more. Tim, the chief financial officer for a small company, comes home one night looking miserable. He tells his wife, Gail, that after poring over the business's latest financial statements, he realizes he might need to recommend layoffs. At first, Gail used closed questions and makes assumptions about how her husband must be feeling. She gets nowhere. But when she switches strategies, her husband opens up. Gail, oh no, those poor people. You must feel terrible. Tim, frowning. Sure. Gail, you don't feel terrible? Tim, of course I do. Gail, open-ended question. What are you feeling most of all? Tim, I'm scared out of my mind. It's my job to advise Carl. He's relying on me, but I'm not sure what to tell him, and if I blow it, the company is screwed. What if I say, don't lay off anybody, and then we go under? Or what if there are layoffs and they weren't necessary? People will be out of work. It'll be my fault. Gail, deepening statement. You're feeling like it's all your responsibility. Tim, it is. I have to make a decision, but I don't know what's right. I've always believed you just make a decision and move on. Gail, deepening statement. But this is a really tough decision for you. Tim, yeah, but it shouldn't be. You gotta do what you gotta do. I feel like a failure. Gail, deepening statement. It's a really tough position to be in. Tim, yeah. So let's break this down a little, and I know that he will in the text, so I'll read what he says, but also, you must feel terrible. She's telling him how he must feel. That's why he's kind of like, that makes it a little harder for him, because typically when that happens, so essentially Gail is saying something that's maybe 80% right. He does feel terrible, but there's more to it. And so there's always a but kind of behind it. And she's not letting him say how he feels. So I've experienced this dynamic myself where I have a frowny face on and my partner's trying to ask me how I feel, but keeps telling me how I feel. And I'm guilty of it as well. And so it kind of, instead of, you're trying to connect, but instead of connecting, you end up stifling the conversation. It's kind of interesting. And then, you don't feel terrible? He's like, of course I do. So it's not that he doesn't feel terrible, it's just that there's more to the story. So instead of telling your partner how they must feel or how they feel, just ask an open-ended conversation. What are you feeling most of all? I know that like in our dynamic, my partner will ask me, how was your day? And sometimes I don't feel like talking, and so I just say, good, day was good. And so if he knows that I've been doing something throughout the day, like I'm trying to remember what the conversation was yesterday. Something like, how was the grocery shopping? Good. And so So this isn't an exact formula, right? Because if your partner's just not there, just doesn't want to have a conversation, all of that poking and prodding can actually backfire on you. And sometimes I'm just good. Everything's good because I don't feel like talking. And it's kind of when they provide me the space. So he'll provide me the space by kind of not saying as much. Like, it gives me a chance to collect my thoughts and feelings and then start talking. I will start talking. It just kind of takes me a minute. So you have to take into account your partner's mood, what they've been doing all day, whether they've been stressed or not stressed, whether they're in a talkative mood or not, whether they're an introvert or extrovert. So there's a lot to this, but it's all very interesting stuff. So then when she starts asking the open-ended questions and then the deepening statements, all these deepening statements is empathy. So she's being empathetic. You feel like it's all your responsibility. I mean, this actually, you could look back when she says, you must feel terrible. And here she says, you're feeling like it's all your responsibility. If she wasn't right, if she was slightly off, then that could be the same as telling your partner how you feel. So instead you could ask, do you feel like it's all your responsibility? That might change it or open it up a little bit for him to be able to give his perspective. This is a really tough decision for you. This must be a really tough decision for you. What you see Gail doing in these deepening statements, so you're feeling like it's all your responsibility, but this is a really tough decision for you. It's a really tough position to be in. She's kind of echoing back to him what he's saying to her. And so that's the strength called active listening. And it's practicing empathy. So even if you think, and we'll get into this when I talk about the stress reducing conversation in Gottman's other book, but even if you think maybe your partner really mucked up and you don't like what they're doing, in order for the two of you to move together, you have to be on their side. And so human nature may say something like, let's put this example to the side. Let's instead talk about being late for work. You know that your partner is always just rushing out the house, never gathers anything, never prepares anything, and then they come to you complaining about how they're late for work. And you're like, well, of course, you don't lay out your outfit the night before, you don't plan your meals, you set your alarm with snooze for 15 different times. Of course you're late. Maybe you're right in what you're saying, but the way that you're making your partner feel by all of that when they're coming to you asking for support is you're just completely you're not supportive and you're criticizing them when they're coming to you needing support. So all of these things where we see that Gail is having deepening statements. Yes, you want to ask those open-ended questions, but everything that she's saying is kind of echoing back what he says and then expressing that she's on his side. And that's the most important thing. You first need to connect with your partner and let them feel that you're on their side. Even if you have advice to give, they're not necessarily coming to you in that moment for advice. They're coming to you for support. And that's the first thing you want to give, even if later you do give the advice. So let me just continue on reading here. This is page 97 if you're following along. Later, Tim tells his wife how helpful it was to confide his self-doubt to someone he could trust and who understood. The company does lay off a few people, but it's able to pull up of the slump before letting others go. Okay, so he didn't really break it down here. I guess I really broke it down, but this is all using the techniques that he talks about in the 7 Principles of Making Marriage Work. So in the next video, we will cover expressing compassion and empathy, which is the last of the 4 principles of attunement, or the art of intimate conversation. And then I'm just going to cut in with an excerpt of what makes, this is what makes love last. The 7 principles of making marriage work. We're going to talk about the stress reducing conversation, just because I really think the tips and tricks that he gives in that are really helpful. And I know that they helped me firsthand. So if you do get a chance, please check out our site. We're at www.findingyourselfsatx.com. There you can take our life balance questionnaire, send it over to us in an email. If you prefer, just send a text or call us, and we'd be happy to meet with you. Your first consult is always free.